now that we've learned about two different number types, integers and floats, we're going to learn about a new type called strings. And strings are a way to represent text inside of Python. So I left some examples here to show both an integer and a float, and let's talk about our new type, which is string. So let's make a string variable that represents my shirt color. So I'm going to make a variable here called shirt, and I'm going to set this equal to a color. So my shirt is blue, so I'm going to say shirt is equal to blue. But you'll notice if I try and run our code here, I'm going to get a really nasty looking error that just says, hey, this thing blue, it's not defined. And the problem is here that in Python, whenever you want to represent a string or represent text, you have to put that text with some quotes around it. So for example, I'm just going to put some double quotes around the term blue here. And now that I've done this, when I hit the run button, you'll notice everything's working. We don't see anything outputted to the console, but we also don't see any errors. And the reason we don't see anything in the console is because we haven't printed anything. If we want to do that, we'll say print and put shirt inside of the parentheses, and now we'll see the term blue show up. And you'll notice the term blue there, it doesn't have those double quotes. Again, the quotes signify that what is inside of them is a string. It's the piece of text that we want to put inside of a variable. Now, something cool about Python is you can use double quotes or single quotes to represent a string. So for example, if I do single quotes here instead of double and I run our code, we're going to have the exact same output. The only thing that we can't do is have a mix. We can't start with a double quote and then end with a single quote. We have to be consistent about how we represent our strings. So connected with this, let's say that we want to have a new type of variable. Let's say it's the tag name for a new store that we have. So I'm going to say store is equal to, and the string that I want to represent is something like Nick's Pizza Shop. Okay, so if I were to go and put single quotes around this, you'll notice that we have an issue. Inside of my string, I make use of a single quote when I say Nick's Pizza Shop. And if I try and run this again, I'm going to get an error. And I don't even have to run here in REPL to see that I'll have an issue. Whenever you see this red squiggly line, this gives you a good idea that you have a problem and that you need to fix it. So how could we fix this situation? Well, in this case, I can just change my outer quotes to double quotes instead of single. And because I don't use a double quote inside of my string, now this is completely valid and I can run this and not have any errors. So if we want to make this a little bit more complicated, what if we had a string like Nick's Pizza Shop, comma, the best there is? And I'm going to put best in quotes because best is kind of relative. And you'll notice now that we run into an issue. This string not only has a single quote after Nick's, but also has double quotes around best. So if we try and put our single quotes around the whole thing, we'll run into an issue because we use a single quote inside of that string, and the same thing with the double quotes. So how can we handle this situation? Well, in a string, if any time you want to have a quote but don't have it actually represent the end of a string, you can put a backslash in front of it. So for example, where I have this single quote here, I can put a backslash in front of it, and that's a way to say, hey, don't treat this as the end of the string. Have this just be a regular single quote. And you'll notice doing this fixes our situation. So if we go ahead and print out whatever we have inside of store here, we'll see that we get a nice looking string that says Nick's Pizza Shop, the best there is. So there you have it. You now have 3 different types in your tool belt. We've got integers, floats, and strings. To make sure you got a good grasp on strings, let's go ahead and do a little challenge here. I want you to put the name of a movie you like into a variable called movie. Again, don't forget your quotes there. Hit pause, do that now. Okay, hopefully that went well for you. So we're going to have a variable called movie, and I really like the movie The Sandlot. So I'll say Sandlot with the single quotes around it. Again, you could have double, up to you. We're going to be learning about how we can take variables and place them inside of our strings. So I've gotten a few variables set up so that we can practice this. I have the day, the month, and the temperature. And notice the month is a string variable, what we just learned in our last video. So let's say I want to print out a string about today and what the temperature is. I'm going to say print with some parentheses and put a double quote inside of there so that I can create a string. And I'm going to say something like, today is October 21st, and it's 65 degrees outside. Okay, so with this information, if I go ahead and run our code, you can see that string that we created, today is October 21st, and it's 65 degrees outside, is displayed. That's great. But let's say we wanted the string to actually represent the different pieces of information we had inside of our variables. So if the day changed to the 25th and we run our code, it still says October 21st. It will always say October 21st. What if we change the temperature to something really cold, like -15? It's still going to display 65 degrees outside. So the question is, how do we make it so that this string that we are printing represents the values that we have inside of those variables? Well, what we can do is use something called an F string. So in Python, at the beginning of your string, right before your first double or single quote, you're going to just put a lowercase letter f, just like this. So even before we do anything else, I want you to see here that if we run our code, everything still works. I know it seems strange. You just put the letter F and it's still valid. Yes, it is, because when you have that F, it means that now you can place variables inside of your string. So for example, where we have the date, where it currently says 21, I'm going to delete this and put in some curly brackets, and inside of those curly brackets, I'm going to put the variable day. So now that I have that there, I'm going to run our code, and look what we get outputted in the console. Today is October 25th, and it's 65 degrees outside. So it followed whatever day was. If I change day to the 3rd, and I hit run here, now it says today is October 3rd. How cool is that? So let's keep this going. Let's say instead of October, we're going to replace this with curly brackets, and we're going to put the month variable in there. And the same thing with the degrees. Instead of 65, we're going to replace that and say that this should be the temp. So now that we have this and we run, it now says today is October 3rd and it's -15 degrees outside. Let's change our month to September, and when we run, it says today is September 3rd and it's -15 degrees outside. Great. So what's so cool about this is we can represent all different types of variables inside of here. Not only can we represent integers, we can also represent strings. And if we had any floats, those would work as well. Now, one thing that I want you to notice about REPL here, and a lot of different code editors will have this, but it's really nice to see that, for example, strings are represented in red and numbers are represented in green. And you can see that prints are purple, the equal sign is blue, and as you code more and more, you'll notice that this will help you. If we look inside of our F string, you can see anywhere that we used variables, that was black instead of the usual red text that you see with the string. And so it's these little tiny details that will really help us as we're coding. So to make sure that you've got a good grasp on this, let's go ahead and introduce our challenge. What I would like you to do is make a variable called day name and set it to the day of the week, like Tuesday, and add it